around, please explain to the people, explain to the Zambians. Is Honorable Kafwaya here? And was Honorable Kafwaya shot by your army?
It's a laughing matter. I think we need to be serious as a people. We need really to move away from fabricating information.
Whoa, let's talk about this. So a couple of days ago, I put up a video. Now, I could see from that video there were lots of mixed feelings depending on how you watched that video or perceived it. And other people straight away were being very judgmental, while other people were saying all sorts of things, but that is just noise. So we're going to talk about these gentlemen here, these permanent secretaries of different ministries. The first gentleman we're going to talk about here is Mr. Mutotwe Kafwaya. The second person, we've got Mr. Mambo Hamandu, the guy in the middle right here, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Defense of Zambia, and the last gent is Dixon Matembo, who is the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Home Affairs and Internal Security. Now, the reason why we're going to talk about these gentlemen here, these three Permanent Secretaries, I believe that these are the very same people that led the people of Zambia down. The problem, in my opinion, was never the president, and I'm going to tell you why. Why I believe that the problem with these three people that as we speak now need to be accountable for this whole thing. Because this is how a defensible operation became a national scandal. So these are the very same people that let their president down. Their job, they only had one job to do. And that simple job was simply to tell the truth and to make sure that all those families that were anxious about, their missing relatives and so on, were catered for. But that is not what actually happened. For those of you that may not know what we're talking about and you're joining us for the first time, we are talking about the issue that happened on the 14th of August 2026. This was a night in which there was a joint military operation that targeted the opposition leader, Mr. Brian Mutotwe, right here, because of issues surrounding state security. Because according to the state, there were reports that they had trained people outside of the country to cause confusion or to destabilize the country following these contentious elections. So you can imagine, they were saying that they had high-grade military weapons, and it was necessary. It was necessary for state military to intervene in these situations. That was an active operation going on, and anxieties were really high. But I suppose the only consolation at that point was to see that the opposition leader, Mr. Brian Mutotwe himself, was sounded safe. He came out of that operation and he gave that testimony where he said, there was gunpowder right on his head. Even though a lot of people at that point thought that what he was saying was just fabrication, it was just something that was making up and so on and so forth. But the truth anyway came out later, and what the opposition leader was saying was actually the truth. The truth of the matter is, until today, is that joint operation actually took place. Now, if there was one thing that these gentlemen had to do was simply to speak the truth and inform the people of Zambia in a direct way. This is what they had to do. One simple job in which they failed to do. Instead, what we saw was those same lies that they were cooking up from day one, which did not just help the people of Zambia, but they made the president look bad. All they had to do on that very day was just to say we had a joint military operation, we had people that were injured, some of them deceased, some of them deceased, but we are yet to confirm the number of people that were deceased. People were going to understand at the end of the day, because the fact that Mr. Brian Mutotwe, their main subject, this is the man that everyone wanted to know that he was safe, and he was safe at that point. But these senior government officials, right here, they cooked up a total lie. They called it, in their own ways, as we've seen, they called it disinformation. They say there was no record of Honorable Mutotwe Kafwaya at Mainasoko Hospital. And looking at this gentleman here, even mocking him and laughing at the situation. Just look at it. And then we had Mr. Kafwaya as well actually saying this was a total lie.
It is a lie.
And so, looking at all these issues where they doubled down, they took all these officials, 3 permanent secretaries, lined up at the hospital with the same intent into the premises to try and gather that evidence. There were lots of issues that were being raised. So, at the end of the day, whoever they may think, you can blame the president out of it, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, it does not make any sense, because the president cannot think about all these things and say, oh, well, when that happens, please make sure you barricade and all that. It's a joint military operation. Some of these jobs are meant for the military to actually carry out using their own intelligence and using their experience and their military expertise to carry out some of these issues. But the only problem is when you're dealing with things at that high level, it's always the president's name that gets floated all the time. But this is where you get all these issues that, doing your president a favor. Their job was to protect the crime scene, to protect the people of Zambia, and to protect the office of the president of the Republic of Zambia. There was no need to have this scandal that we are now seeing at international level. And this is where the problem is, because they reached out, these three gentlemen here, reached out for the denial card right immediately. And they handed the president's opponents the most powerful weapon they could ask for, which is the appearance of a cover-up. Now, this is ridiculous because everywhere you go, the United Nations, you go to COMESA, you go to SADC, you go to the EU, you get prominent figures to do with the international observations. They're talking about the same issue. Okay? If you take the time to read about these things, it's the office of the President of the Republic of Zambia that is being tainted in this case because of these three guys here. Because of the way they handled this matter. Now, the question that is being floated here is that who did these three permanent secretaries actually protect? Because they did not protect the president. They did not protect the people of Zambia. They exposed the president of the Republic of Zambia instead. They made him look like a man whose government lies to its own people. This is what they did. Because they reached for that denial card, they lied right from their own teeth, on camera, live, laughing and mocking about it. While the widow, at that point, she was already a widow. She was crying and mourning, she was in anguish, pleading to the state for intervention. So the point I want to make is that obviously this is not an attack on the president of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. I'm not even saying that that joint operation was wrong, okay? I'm not even saying that, there were weapons or there were not weapons. I cannot even justify to say what was happening at Brian Mundubele's house was right or wrong. But the point I'm trying to make here is that these guys had one job to do. One job to do, and that job was to tell the truth to the people of Zambia and to protect the office of the President of the Republic of Zambia. And what did they do instead? They buried a legitimate operation under a pile of unnecessary lies. This is what happened. That joint operation may have been, needed. It may have been required. It may have been necessary to carry out at that time. But you reduced that joint military operation just as a pile of nothing, to the point that we had speculation coming in left, right, and center. Now, I do realize there's a lot of noise currently in Zambia, and it needs a government that can say the hard thing on day one, not on day 6. Something happens on day 1, and we all know that it's not easy to deal with such uncomfortable truths. And sometimes how you calm the people down and how you defend a president is not lying for him, or trying to cover up for him and so on and so forth, but by making sure that there is never anything for his enemies to catch them on. Now, a lot of people may not realize, particularly when you're playing such kind of politics, okay, that sometimes, we take things for granted. Because if you look at Zambia today, you may not realize it. Probably, I'm not on the ground right now, but you may not realize it. But Zambia is a country that is very well respected in the international scene. And the president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, has got a lot of respect when it comes on the international scene, when it comes to how people view Zambia, whether it's in terms of trade, whether it's in terms of democracy, whether it's in terms of bilateral agreements, or whatever it is. Zambia is seen as one of the most peaceful hubs in Africa, if not the world. Now, when you have that kind of attitude, where you have your own permanent secretaries, your own people in the cabinet lying, and all that is displayed for the world to see, you tell me what that shows. It does not help. It does not help at all. So what we are saying is this: to avoid a repeat of the same situation, Should you find yourself in this similar situation next time, speak the truth from day one and not on day 6. You speak the truth on day 1, because this is how you defend a president. This is how you defend your communities. This is how you defend the image of your country, not by lying and cocking up lies to that extent that you're giving your enemies, something to talk about. Okay, you don't do that, because you're simply making the office of the president vulnerable. You're making the people of Zambia vulnerable. And what if now all these international communities start coming in and start saying, well, no, we need to start putting for sanctions and to do this and that? It's the very same people of Zambia that will suffer because of these same unnecessary things that shouldn't really be happening. So it's ridiculous, really, to see that all these things have had to happen because of these 3 permanent secretaries here. So just yesterday, I wrote an open appeal to the president, and I'm going to read that appeal to you right here, because something needs to be done about these gentlemen. Because at the end of the day, if nothing is done about it, then there's a very high chance that the very same things are likely to be repeated to the people of Zambia. And there's nothing worse, and I'll tell you this now, there's nothing worse than the people of Zambia not to trust their own government. This is the worst nightmare ever, because you need to be able to receive information from a government institution, from a government official, and say, obviously, whatever they tell you, you just get it as absolute truth. This is how it's supposed to be. Now, this does not help. So are you telling me if one of these permanent secretaries put up an official statement one of these days and say something, people will take that information and, with a pinch of salt. It's supposed to be salt sana, as they say. But now people... When people start taking that information with a pinch of salt, then we have a problem right there. So that open appeal, I said in this letter to say, Mr. President Hakainde Hichilema, I believe you were badly let down, not by the Zambian people, but by senior government officials whose public statements should have protected the credibility of your government. Following the August 14 joint security operation, 3 permanent secretaries stood before the nation and categorically dismissed reports concerning Mutotwe Kafwaya as a total lie. Days later, the Inspector General of Police confirmed that the deceased man was indeed Mutotwe Kafwaya. That leaves the nation with a very simple question: how did we get from a total lie to official confirmation? The 3 permanent secretaries who publicly addressed the matter were Thabo Kawana, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Information and Media. The second, Mambo Hamaundu, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Defense of Zambia. And the third one was Dixon Matembo, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Home Affairs and Internal Security. Mr. President, my appeal is simple. Review what happened and establish who knew what, when they knew it, and how information that later proved incorrect came to be presented so confidently to the Zambian people. This is not about automatically condemning the security operation itself. There may have been legitimate grounds for that operation and legitimate threats confronting the officers involved. But that important discussion has now been overshadowed by something entirely avoidable: the perception that the government was not truthful with its own people. And that is where I believe you were failed as a president. Those statements did not protect your presidency, they exposed it. They gave your political opponents something far more powerful than speculation: a contradiction coming from the state itself. Now imagine if from the beginning the government had simply said, a man has died during a security operation, his identity is still being formally established, and the nation will be informed once that process is complete. There was not going to be any premature conclusions, no categorical denial, no contradiction 5 days later. Mr. President, Zambia is already politically tense. What the country desperately needs now is confidence in its institutions. Zambians must be able to believe that when their government speaks, it is giving them the facts available at the time, even when those facts are uncomfortable. Because once citizens begin doubting official statements, The damage goes far beyond one incident. Even when government subsequently tells the truth, people may no longer believe it. Accountability here would therefore not weaken your government, it would strengthen it. Find out what went wrong, sir. Establish responsibility, and where officials failed in their duty to communicate truthfully and accurately with the nation, hold them accountable. Sometimes the greatest protection a president can receive from those around him is not silence, it's not denial or damage control. It's the truth from day one. This is what we are reclaiming. So this is a open appeal that I put up for the president, okay, in the hope that they should really investigate this matter and open up an inquiry that has to be led, by a sensible people, to find out what went wrong on that day and to investigate people like these permanent secretaries here and find out, from the Inspector General of Police, what really happened. Why did you not cordon off that place, being a crime scene? How was the evidence gathered, the forensic departments and so on. So this has to be something that Zambia can learn from, so that when the report goes out there and is published, we are able to see in the international community and say, yes, this is how things should have been done. And if there are any mistakes that have to be learned from it, then we have to learn from those mistakes and avoid a repeat of the same. So I don't know what you think about this, but I believe this is necessary, to think along those lines, and hopefully these three gentlemen here, these permanent secretaries, need to be held accountable. And it shouldn't just stop at them. We've got the Inspector General of Police, we've got all the military personnel, we've got everyone that was involved in this operation needs to be brought to book. So until then, my name is NB. This is War We Are Reclaiming. Speak soon.